and therefore we come to item 8. There are only 2 items on our agenda today, and the papers that the recommendations we're moving today, of course, have been before this same body and Finance and Performance back in May, and were workshopped last week, and people had lots of opportunity if there was anything that they needed to have altered. Councillors will be pleased to know that the photos of councillors, led by Councillor John Watson, appear right at the beginning of the new document. Item number 8 is the adoption of the long-term plan 2018-2028. Welcome to the table, Michael Burns, Kylie Thompson and Ross Tucker. And the purpose of this item is to adopt the annual budget 2019-2020 and the amendment to the 10-year budget regarding property transfers. I will begin by moving it formally, seconded by Councillor Ross Clow, Chair of the Finance Committee. And if I could ask the staff please to report on this item.
Sure. Thank you. As the Mayor's just outlined, today we're asking you to adopt the annual budget for next year and also the amendment to the long-term plan about waterfront land transfers. As the Mayor's also said, the key decisions have already been made and were confirmed by the governing body on the 22nd of May. The documents have all been workshopped. For the 10-year budget amendment, there is an audit process wrapped around that, and you'll hear from the Audit New Zealand to provide opinion based on behalf of the Office of the Auditor General later. It is important that we do adopt the annual plan, the annual budget today. It is a statutory requirement that the annual budget is adopted ahead of 30 June each year. It's also very important that the annual budget is adopted ahead of striking rates, which is the next item on the agenda. For that, I'll pass over to Kylie to talk about the specific amendments in front of you and the documentation that we're asking you to adopt today.
Thanks, Ross. So there are 4 recommendations on the report today. The first recommendation is seeking adoption of the amendment to the 10-year budget regarding property transfers. This amendment has been through final audit review, and we have Joe Smale here from Audit New Zealand who will speak a bit later regarding the opinion. On the 5th of June, the Audit and Risk Committee resolved to advise governing body internal controls and risk management processes have been followed, and there are no significant outstanding audit issues. Following the workshop held last week, we added an overview to the technical document to provide context and explain what is changing. The second recommendation is to agree the Te Puna Maunga Authority operational plan and the summary of the operational plan, which will be included in the annual budget. On the 7th of June, the Te Puna Maunga Authority agreed to this plan, subject to governing body also agreeing to it. The third recommendation is adopting the annual budget 2019-2020, which is made up of 2 volumes, including local board agreements. Since the workshop last week, where you gave us a couple of suggestions, we have since incorporated these into the document. And the final recommendation covers delegations for staff to make minor editorial changes before it's sent off to print. So happy to take any questions on the report or any of the documents.
Councillors, we've been through it before, but if there are any outstanding questions on any aspect of any of the recommendations, this is the time to put them. If not, I'll move straight to Councillor Sayers.
Just, Your Worship, on the 22nd of May, I asked if the seal extension budget and the long-term plan, which is 121 million, could be divvied up evenly over the 10 years, i.e. about 12 million a year compared to about the 5 million it is for the first 6 years. I just wondered if that work had been undertaken, Your Worship.
I'll pass that question to officials. I do know that from the discussions that we've had on a number of occasions, the tightness in our capital program is certainly in the first few years because of the City Rail link, and therefore some of the expenditure is backloaded, not only in that area but in other areas as well. In explaining that, could you maybe also just give us an indication of how the budget for sealing roads compares with the last long-term plan, what the percentage increase has been between the 2 long-term plans, because I think it's quite significant.
I'll start. So no changes to the budgets have been made since the 22nd of May. I think it's an issue that we can look at and consider further. Changes to budget timing, can be looked at through any Finance Performance Committee if there are significant changes. As a general principle, capital is constrained, so there's always a debt impact in any change. In terms of the specific numbers around road reseal, is a significant increase on what was there previously. I'm not sure of the details. Mike, have you got anything to add? We can come back on those specific numbers shortly.
That'd be helpful. Thank you, Councillor. If there are no other questions, could I welcome and invite Joe Smale, the Audit Director of Audit New Zealand, please to come to the table and to present the officer's draft opinion on the LTP amendment. Welcome, Joe. I hope you didn't have any problems getting in the airport this morning, as you have had on occasion in the past. Oh, okay. Well, you won't have had a problem then. Right, the floor is yours, Joe.
Well, thank you. So Greg Sholem sends his apologies. Unfortunately, he had a family bereavement, so he's ended up at a funeral. So he does apologise for not being here. And he's asked me just to present, I have the opinion here that I will talk through briefly for you. So you'll recall that we issued an opinion on the long-term plan probably about 12 months ago. I think it was the 28th of June last year. And we considered the LTP at that time provided a reasonable basis for long-term integrated decision-making, and it also coordinated of the Council's resources. The opinion also covers accountability of the Council to the community, and we were comfortable with that. The information and assumptions underlying the forecast information was reasonable, and the disclosures that were within the long-term plan met the regulations that you are required to comply with. So when we do the audit of the amendment, what we do is we consider the consequential impact of the changes on the original long-term plan, and that's what this opinion that we're about to issue considers. So we're not reissuing an opinion on the long-term plan. All we are saying is that we've had a look at the changes within the amendment, and we're confirming that the conclusions that we reflected in the original audit opinion that we gave to you on the LTP, they remain valid, and that they have not been impacted at all by the amendment to the LTP that you're about to adopt. So it's a little bit different than normal. So it's really just looking to make sure you're not changing anything that is then impacting on the original opinion that we issued. So I have the opinion here, and I have received already your letter of representation. So thank you very much. That confirms your responsibilities and that you're comfortable with what you've provided. And you've also provided me with the signed documents, so we'll be issuing the opinion, releasing the opinion this afternoon. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from councillors? I think it's pretty straightforward, and it's good to have the reaffirmation of the conclusions of your original opinion as it relates to this amendment. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Joe. That's very helpful, and I accept the opinion you've just given us. I'm interested going forward. Yesterday at a public meeting of the Finance Committee, we had Auckland Transport for their quarterly reporting, which is required, and from my perspective, obviously many of the funds that Auckland is looking at going into the next financial year is associated with transport, and our transport priorities have been determined by the ATAP program. The ATAP program, they weren't able to tell me yesterday, but they're coming back formally to me about what on that list has actually been commenced. It would appear that there is some uncertainty, and that might be to do with NZTA, it may be to do with other reasons, but can you just give me guidance, where it's the lion's share of the funding going forward, where we may have these variations, that we've gone in good faith to look at those projects that we've agreed and the things that we want to see delivered. What guidance would you give us as elected members as this might need to be reviewed during the course of the year?
I'm not sure that's really a question for me. That is a decision for council and council management, which we're not really involved in. I know when you did your original long-term plan, there was a program of work set out. So when you're doing your annual report, you will report on where you're at, and we will have a look at the reasonableness of that. But any decisions that you make going forward are really your decisions, and not something that we would get involved with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no further questions from anyone, thank you, Joe. It's a very short visit, but thank you, and we welcome the support and the opinion, reaffirmation of the opinion that you've given it to us. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we come to recommendation A, which is adopting the 10-year budget regarding the property transfers, the question that we've just had reported on by the Office of the Auditor General. Are there any comments that people want to make? If not, I will put recommendation A. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. We come to recommendation B, which is in relation to agreeing to the Tupuna Monga Authority Operational Plan for 2019-2020. Any comment on that? If not, I shall put recommendation B. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I declare it carried. We come to now to debate recommendation C and D, which is the annual budget for 2019-2020 and the delegation to make minor editorial changes. Is there any comment from councillors? If not, I'll put those two recommendations together, C and D. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. So that... Okay. Councillor Lee is recorded against C and Councillor Fletcher.